Hey, in this video I'm gonna talk about player mentality in Combat Arms Classic and compare it to the old Russia version. These versions differ not only in game features but also in how players behave. I'm not gonna talk about Brazil since I haven't played it enough to make objective conclusions about its community, just like with Reloaded. I played Combat Arms Russia from 2012 to 2023 and met all kinds of players: raiders, whiners, quiet ones, friendly types, tryhards and more. When I switched to Classic, I noticed players there are more expressive and into the game, while in Russia they're less lively and play with less passion. You can see it not just in playstyle and chat, but in how players interact overall. In Classic, I often see more immature behavior and unjustified kicks. Players have to switch rooms, create their own, or even change accounts just to keep playing. It's pretty common for players to avoid modes in the game because they don't want to get kicked, and those modes basically get away with it. The red mode system or banning players is not the most effective ways to handle the problem. Devs can't keep an eye on everyone, so players just have to put up with the mess. Sometimes I run into players who complain and get aggressive when someone wrecks them in the game. A common thing is when one player wrecks another, and in response he gets a social message like "Roger that," meaning "okay, I remember you." Then in the next round he purposely goes after that player, or sometimes after that he starts messaging in chat or sending private messages with insults or asking to be left alone. However, this kind of behavior is quite understandable. Kicks for infection or killing are especially common, and it's usually the same players doing it. And that's what I'm talking about: impunity and stagnation. No action is taken to fix the problem, so the situation stays the same without any improvements. But it doesn't mean everyone in Classic acts like that. There are many calm and reasonable players who make the game enjoyable. I'm sure everyone had those moments when someone gave you a chance after messing up, like when you got stuck and they didn't infect you, or when they explained the rules at first instead of instantly kicking you, or said "nice play" after a win instead of throwing insults. That's the kind of attitude that makes the game better. I know reliable players I can trust. If they have an elite mode, I can play without worrying about getting kicked for infection or killing. But being a fair and honest mode doesn't always work in your favor. There will always be people who hit F6, which can lead to limited kick abilities. I also want to point out that players in Classic have higher skills. They think faster and know more tricks, exploits and even cheats than players from Russia. Personally, I've learned a lot of new things in Classic that I never saw in Russia. On one hand, it's great, you improve your skills and learn new stuff, but on the other hand, it makes the game harder. The game level here is high, so you have to try harder more than actually enjoying the process. As a result, players team up and use cheats. Actually, if you think back to the old version of Combat Arms Russia, when online were high, there were way fewer hackers compared to the current Classic. Some players even create private rooms with passwords and invite their friends to record clips, because nowadays it's pretty hard to do that in an honest way. But the difficulty of the game is not just about player skills, it's also about the abilities, game mechanics and the mode concepts. Next up, let's talk about teaming. Some players purposely help each other or throw the game, which messes with the balance. Other players notice it, get frustrated and lose interest because they can tell the outcome is already decided. This happens in both versions of the game, and the reasons for it could be the game's difficulty, as I said, player relationships, like if they're friends or clanmates, the intention to achieve certain goals, like in-game challenges, tasks and other stuff. You can try to solve this by asking players to stop teaming or by kicking them, but the next problem is the moderation system is not developed enough. Like I said, fair modes risk getting restrictions because of unfair players. Basically, you kick someone for a good reason, but some people vote against it for no reason, which leads to unwanted consequences. In Classic, these trends are much more noticeable compared to Russia, except for teaming and unfair players. That kind of thing was also there. I think the moderation system needs to be changed. I'll start with small changes, for example, adding a kick history log and the moderator reputation system. For example, you are player 1 and player 2 kicks you. Both players automatically get a record in the log showing who kicked who, when and why. Let me show you. This is a progress bar, which I'll explain later. This is a level up reward. You'll be able to see all rewards as silhouettes, and once you hit the level, the full image will appear. Each one will be unique. That's your mode reputation. The highest is 10, the lowest is 0.5. Reports, feedback about you from other players. That is your kick history. It's visible to everyone. Date, like when you kicked the player you kicked, reason for kick, and voting status. Let's say 90% for and 10% against. And this is your kick history as a regular player, which is private and visible only to you. Also with a date, like when you got kicked, mode, who kicked you, reason, and status. Next to it are your reports, also date, topic, etc. The mode reputation will be automatically calculated based on voting results and the number of reports. If the voting percentage is negative and there are too many reports on you, mode rating will drop and your abilities will be limited. Each report will be strictly filtered. It has to be based on real violations or unfair actions. For example, if you report a player just because they have a German flag, the report will be rejected as baseless. Along with that, we need to improve support and keep a closer eye on players. Admins will be able to watch players' game recordings, and if a report comes in, they can check the recording and take the right action. This will help reduce the number of frequent and baseless kicks, and not just that. Admins will always keep you updated. All your reports will be listed in your personal info and will stay private. If a report is under review, you'll see it in the status. If it's rejected, the player will get an explanation to clear things up. If it's approved, you'll see what actions were taken. We could also add a progress system for players with a high rating. It would be an extra incentive to play fair. As rewards for leveling up, players could get special badges or ranks to show off their good reputation, along with bonuses like GP, functions, or exclusive items. High-rated players might even get to suggest themselves as game admins or help shape the community. By the way, I would not ban players for abusing the mode power. It's better to focus on tough restrictions. I would improve the regression system and add warnings and penalties. For the first violation, unjustified kick, player will get a warning. The warning can either be temporary, disappearing if there is no more violations, or cumulative, if the violations keep happening. If they keep doing it, they get a second warning, a small drop in reputation, and a temporary block from kicking and voting. For the third strike, there will be a bigger drop in reputation, a longer block on kicking and voting, plus limited access to some items or functions in the game, and also there will be a fine, let's say around 50,000 GP, and it will increase with each new violation. There will be a way to bounce back. Players can fix their record within a certain time, and the restrictions will be lifted if they don't mess up again. This will give players a chance to recover and get back to a good standing. I also think the kick restriction at the start and end of the game doesn't really make sense. Either it should be removed or the time frame should be shorter, since most violations happen during those moments. Players use it to their advantage, knowing they can't get kicked, and other players deal with it or leave. So, the kick log and the mode reputation system will not only control players' actions, but also let everyone see if decisions are fair and push players to play honestly. Classic differs from Russia in the game economics and its impact on players. In Classic, it works in a way that makes players want to get involved. They're trying to earn in-game resources, level up, which makes them focus more on collecting, trading, getting valuable stuff. There's also a big demand for store items. Players are more likely to buy skins, functions, sets, and other stuff. Classic has more of a collecting and trading mentality, while Russia is more modest and passive. Players there don't buy as much, and the demand for in-game items is a lot lower. In Classic, things like tracker knife, recon vest, or a colored nickname are pretty standard, but in Russia those were like rare, exclusive items. Classic is more saturated visually in terms of skins and stats, with more flashy players and intense customization compared to Russia. And finally, there's the language difference. In Classic, people speak all sorts of languages: English, Polish, French, Spanish, German, while in Russia it's all Russian. Mentality is a matter of individuality, because everyone's different and it can change, especially when you step into a new environment. Players who moved from Russia to Classic are a great example of how their perception and approach can shift. The key is not to get stuck on the tough stuff or the bad moments, but to take the game more casually and enjoy it. My take on mentality comes from my own game experience, and if I got anything wrong, let me know in the comments. And if I missed something, feel free to edit. That's it. Peace.